Let's crack on with tonight's first debate. I'm going to abuse position of the chair and talk about this, honestly. A street too far? He's on a street on another planet. 10 years ago, my friends, this very week, we all said, Je suis Charlie. Remember that? It was a call for free speech after the Islamist murder of cartoonists at Charlie Hebdo for their supposedly blasphemous depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. It should have been a turning point for freedom of expression. But it wasn't. Look no further than the still in hiding Batley Grammar School teacher who committed that cardinal sin of heresy. And today, local councils are more concerned about problematic language than the real issue. The vile gangs of primarily Pakistani men preying on vulnerable girls. Councils in Labour-led Oxford, Newcastle, a place I know and love very well, Manchester and Calderdale have backed a report labelling the phrase Asian grooming gangs as racist. You see their priorities. It's enough to make my blood boil. Areas that endured this sickening abuse are now trying to shut down anyone calling it out. And we all know how much Commandant Starmer loves a crackdown on speech. Labour's Wes Streeton, the Health Secretary, well, he's endorsed this nonsense, claiming exposing these gangs through frank language could lead to a massacre like the one in New Zealand. No, Wes. We're not talking about massacres. We're talking about calling a spade a spade. Not all cultures are equally valid, and those who view young white girls as objects to be tortured in the most brutal way imaginable. Even Hollywood couldn't script the horrors that were unleashed upon these girls. They were abused and used, and these people must be named and shamed. I don't care what you call me. Alarmist calls about violence or the word racist bandied about once again, despite being responsible for the cover-up that happened, to suppress your speech, to silence the victims that matter more than anybody else. And they tell us that 85% of group-based abusers were white, where ethnicity data is actually available. But guess what? We haven't been collecting meaningful ethnicity data because it might challenge the multiculturalist narrative and be considered racist. Well, I mean, honestly, sod that. And anyone who unleashes this unspeakable horror upon a child because she's white isn't part of any red, white and blue community that I belong to. How about you at home, my friends? I doubt you're in disagreement with much of what I had to say there, but we'll see what my panel make of this. Kai, you are up Wes Streeton's backside. You must have a few words to say about... Not literally, I must clarify. But no. You must have a few words to say about this.
No, yeah, I'm right here, as you can see. No, look, you're twisting Wes Streeton's words completely here, and it's so unfair to watch. What he's presented is actually a very sensible and nuanced argument, which is, on the one hand, he agrees with what we all agree with. Political correctness has failed the victims of Pakistani rape gangs.
So let's call them more political correctness.
He said no. He said that we could both believe that political correctness has failed the victims of these rape gangs, while also believing that people of Pakistani heritage across the UK who are sickened by these crimes, as we all are worried about being tarred by the same brush. And I don't think it's a step too far to say that you might imagine in the future, if this heightened rhetoric continues and this rhetoric against particular communities in the UK continues, that you'll see something like the Christchurch massacre in a mosque in New Zealand, which had on the magazine of the gun inscribed, "This is for Rotherham." Now, if that happens here in the UK, we know exactly the rhetoric to blame.
Charlie, you've got some forthright views on this. I don't think you've got the urge to go out and shoot a load of people dead. I mean, I just find this is the kind of rhetoric that is inflammatory in a way in which they accuse us of being.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. All this talk of inflammatory rhetoric, but it's really the powers that be that are actually advancing that kind of language. The late great comedian Norm Macdonald once said that he hopes ISIS never get their hands on a nuclear bomb and kill 50 million Americans, because think of the repercussions for the Muslim community. And that's really the attitude that's coming across here, because you said about the Pakistani community in this country who is rightly appalled by what what has happened in as many as 50 cities across the United Kingdom.
So
but I'm not being funny. Where are these people? Where are they marching in the streets against what's gone on? I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the kind of condemnation that we would see come out of the English community, for example, if our people were engaging in this kind of behaviour.
Renee?
I mean, look, you're right. And you know what? If I was being really generous, I'd say you're absolutely right, and that's what's going on here. But it isn't. Wes Streeting almost lost his seat to a pro-Gazan Muslim candidate. And Jess Phillips. They are starting to panic. What you must remember, Kai, that in Rotherham alone, 1 in 57 men of Pakistani origin were prosecuted for this crime. 1 in 57.
That is such a selective use of stats, and you know it, because in Rotherham, there was, rightly, a big gang busted, a big rape gang busted. The number of actual Pakistani males in that community meant that, yes, there was that percentage of Pakistanis in the community that were prosecuted. But it's because, actually, about 25 people who were found guilty was a big proportion of that community. That is an outlier stat. That is a cherry-picking statistic.
The overrepresentation, Will, isn't a problem. We should just all shut up and know our place.
Kai, can't you see that this is exactly how we've got into this problem in the first place? It is through obfuscation, it is through euphemism, it is through cowardice for not calling a problem out for what it is. And what you're doing is just continuing the same problems that have beset the media class, the political class, the police, the judiciary for the last 20 years, and as a result, young girls have been sexually assaulted. But this is the problem. We need to use plain language or else the same...
But that's what Wes Streeting is saying. He's saying political correctness and using sensible language. It's exactly what he's saying. You're twisting his words. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it.
All right. Well, I have got a spokesperson from the government, not down the line, don't worry, from the Home Office. They've issued this statement. They say, no child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it's paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we are working at pace across government to drive forward real action. Yeah, well, not by putting forward a review, eh? Right, OK, who's going to go next? Oh, well, that was forthright, wasn't it? Take it away, Dr. Renee.
OK, so Ed Miliband's obsession with net zero before 2030 nearly cost us the lights literally in our house this week and our heating. We came the closest that we've been to blackouts in 15 years. We teetered on the brink of it. Can you imagine? I can remember as a child blackouts where my mother used to get the candles out and I didn't understand why. We're close to that again now. We had to, via the National Energy System, the operator, we had to pay more than 50 times the national tariff to actually buy 3 hours of electricity to boost the system. £12 million. That's our money that had to pay for that. In winter, when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, our reliance on gas has never been clearer. And yet, gas storage is at the lowest level that we've seen. We've got about 7.5 days of gas. The Holland have got 123 days, Germany 89, France 103. We have 7.5 days. Clearly, renewables are just not cutting it and are leaving us literally in the dark and the cold, despite whatever Ed sings.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Yeah, the thing is, Ed is so misguided that the wind isn't blowing and it's not going to blow for another 8 days, apparently. So we're really in trouble. So this drive to raise our energy bills, to raise the money for this madness, to throw our pensioners literally into the cold so that they freeze to death because we have to, because we need the money, by 2030... The cost of this net zero project is looking by 2030 to cost us another 100 to 150 billion pounds on top of what it's already cost, because it's a waste of money down the drain. We don't have the grid, we don't have the climate, and we don't have the infrastructure to actually transport it, even if we could store it. Meanwhile, we're shutting down gas power stations. We're going to close 2 nuclear plants by 2030, another 2 after 2030. And just yesterday, renewables... 10% of our energy was got from renewables. So clearly, we need gas. But this cult of Ed Miliband are absolutely determined to take us there, regardless of the reality. So whilst the government may deny that this happened, we were indeed on the edge of blackouts this week. So get your candles ready, folks. And if you're really sensible, get your wood burner installed.
Absolutely. I mean, our pensioners, though, Renee, can sleep soundly tonight because the hot air coming out of Ed Miliband's mouth is enough to heat their homes.
But this is the thing that really annoys me, is that they will have a strapline around renewables like it's safer, it's more secure, it's cheaper energy, and then we're expected to believe it when it's right in front of our face. We can see how much gas is left. We can see how much we're paying for energy. I just don't see how this charade is being maintained when it is an objective truth that we're paying more and we've got less energy. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Because you're not supposed to see what's in front of your eyes.
No.
Ed Miliband's quite an interesting example of a politician, I think, who actually believes his own nonsense. Because a lot of politicians, they'll say things, but they don't believe a word of it.
Right.
Yeah. But actually, Ed Miliband, and I have this, I've heard this from people who sit across from him on the green benches. They say, they look into his eyes, and he is actually a kind of a radical, a fanatical guy who truly believes the stuff that he's saying. And that's actually very worrisome, because I'd almost prefer it if he was just a pure kind of Machiavellian pragmatist. Because then, at the very least, he could be turned around to a position that doesn't essentially impoverish the nation, which is ultimately the result of these net zero policies.
On this, surely, and the data that's in front of us, you have to agree that this is madness.
Look, no doubt we are dancing with the devil here, and there need to be sensible measures in place. We need to have more gas in storage and all that kind of stuff. But
what do you mean by
to disavow? Can I just get to the point? to disavow this whole net zero investment and the benefits that it will bring. We know from Chris Skidmore, the former energy minister, that it is the biggest economic opportunity facing Britain in this century. Right? To disavow that whole thing is ridiculous. And also, you talk about ignoring what's right in front of us. In a week where we've seen a whole swathes of neighbourhoods in Los Angeles devastated by fires, you're also ignoring what's right in front of you. No, the energy cost, net zero costing our heating and our lights. Well, how about net zero, how about climate change costing our houses?
Right of reply from the government, Renee, so come back to that. Come back to what Will has had to say. Kai has had to say there.
That's offensive.
So, if you actually look at wildfires around the world, they're actually not increasing. But what has gone on in Los Angeles is that Los Angeles is a tinderbox because they haven't done any tree management, any fire break stuff, and they've got problems in their fire service and recruitment. So that's not a climate policy.
And Madam Speaker, even if fires were increasing, how will English energy policy influence fires in California?
True.
Well, yeah.
That's the point.
I'm sick of hearing it. I really am. A spokesman for the Prime Minister, though, has insisted that the UK had enough natural gas supplies to make it through the winter, and said reports that Britain had come close to blackouts were not true. So British Gas, they don't know what they're talking about, apparently.
And actually, that 7.5 days we've got that you can actually look up on the government website, that's a lie.
Well, the bottom line is that the people of the United Kingdom can see their energy bills. They can see through this.
Oh, damn right.